The courtroom was supposed to be silent, but tension has a sound. A tight, metallic ringing that fills the lungs before anyone speaks. That was the sound echoing through the federal chamber, the moment an old man, barely able to stand without trembling, was escorted to the witness table. His back was bent, his hands shaking, his faded coat far too large for his thin frame. Even his eyes, pale, unfocused, dimmed by age, made it seem like he barely understood where he was. To most of the room, he looked like nothing more than a fragile relic. All except one man, the judge. Judge Hallstrom had built his reputation on iron authority. Former military prosecutor, decorated officer, a man who never softened his tone, not even for children or grieving families, and he certainly wasn't about to soften it for a frail veteran charged with disobeying an evacuation order during a past classified conflict. "State your name for the record," the judge said sharply. The old man didn't answer at first. He blinked, swallowed, seemed lost. Snickers rippled quietly from the gallery. Then the judge leaned forward, voice cold enough to frost glass. "I will not tolerate cowardice in my courtroom. If you can't speak, then you shouldn't have come here at all. You were a coward then, and you're a coward now." A gasps filled the chamber. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably. The old man finally lifted his head. For the first time since entering, his eyes sharpened, just slightly, as if something deep inside him awakened. He leaned forward, just enough for the judge to hear, and he whispered a single call sign. A call sign that made the judge freeze mid-breath. A call sign no civilian should know. A call sign that belonged to a mission erased from every public record, except the people who survived it. Suddenly, the entire courtroom fell silent. The veteran's name was Elias Granger, though almost no one in the room recognized it. His presence in court stemmed from a legal battle over an abandoned property dispute. At least, that's what the public-facing documents said, but whispers insisted there was more. Something about a classified operation. Something about betrayal. At 87 years old, Elias moved like a man made of dust and old memories. He had no family with him, no lawyers, only a cane and an envelope containing documents he held close to his chest. Judge Hallstrom had already decided his opinion of the man long before the trial began. The judge's brother had served in the same conflict and never returned. Over the years, rumors twisted the past, and Elias became an easy target for blame. "Begin questioning," the judge ordered. The prosecutor, a sharp young attorney eager to impress, stepped forward. "Mr. Granger, records show that during the siege of Candle Ridge, your squad was ordered to evacuate. But you did not. Instead, you stayed behind and—" Elias interrupted with a trembling voice. "I stayed because someone had to." The courtroom chuckled. Even the prosecutor smirked. "And according to the report, every man in that unit died. Except you." Elias swallowed hard.
"Less so."
The prosecutor continued, circling him like a wolf. "Why shouldn't the court see your actions as anything other than cowardice? You abandoned the evacuation. You disobeyed an order. You survived when others didn't. You ran." Elias closed his eyes, as if steadying himself against the weight of a memory too heavy to carry at his age. "I didn't run," he whispered. "Oh, really?" The prosecutor scoffed. "Then what did you do?" All eyes turned toward the frail old man. He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Because to answer would mean reopening wounds he had spent half a century sealing shut. The judge slammed his gavel. "Speak up, man. If you're going to sit here wasting our time, the least you can do is explain why you abandoned your post." For a moment, Elias just stared at the polished wood table. Then he whispered, barely audible, "I didn't abandon them, I buried them." A ripple of uneasy murmurs filled the room. The prosecutor scoffed. "Prove it. You have no evidence anything you're saying is true. No records. No living witnesses." "No, I had a team," Elias said, his voice cracking. 7 men. They called us the Night Reapers. A couple of the older veterans in the audience stiffened. That name meant something. "That's not in any military file." The prosecutor snapped. "No," Elias whispered. "It wouldn't be." The judge glared. Is this some attempt to play hero, Granger? Some fantasy? Then it happened. Elias slowly lifted his head, and for the first time, his voice grew stronger, like a man remembering who he used to be. You think I'm lying? He asked softly. Then let me ask you something, Judge Hallstrom. The room fell still as the elderly man leaned forward. What did they call you in the valley? Back when you were still in uniform. The judge froze. A tremor ran across his jaw, because there was no way this old man should have known that part of his past. Elias leaned closer and whispered a single call sign, a name buried deeper than clearance permits. A name the judge hadn't heard since the night he barely escaped Candle Ridge with his life. The judge went pale. The courtroom fell dead silent. And for the first time in decades, the judge saw Elias Granger not as a coward, but as the last surviving shadow of a nightmare they both lived through. Judge Hallstrom tried to regain his composure, but his knuckles were white as they gripped the bench. Memories he had spent years burying clawed their way back to the surface. Court recess, he managed to say, but his voice cracked. No, Elias said gently, surprising everyone. Let them hear it. Let them hear what your brother died for. The judge froze again. How do you know about my brother? He whispered. Elias looked away, eyes broken with remorse. Because I was there. A long, suffocating silence pressed on every heart in the room. The prosecutor stepped back, suddenly unsure. You served with him? The judge asked. No, Elias said. He served with me. Those words carried a weight that changed everything. With great difficulty, Elias reached into his coat. Guards stepped forward, but he held up a trembling hand. It's just paper, he said. He laid the envelope on the table. Inside were 7 dog tags, rusted, damaged, scorched, each strung on a brittle cord. A collective gasp swept through the room. They belong to my men, Elias said softly. Your brother included. The judge's world reeled. He clutched the desk, fighting to breathe. You said they were all dead, the prosecutor whispered. They were, Elias answered. But not because we abandoned the evacuation. Because we stayed behind to hold the line until reinforcements arrived. We held that ridge so the rest of the battalion could survive. The judge's eyes burned. You carried them, he whispered. One by one, Elias said, voice breaking. When the ridge fell, when the fires came, I dug graves with my bare hands. And when I couldn't dig anymore, I covered them with whatever earth I had. I stayed until morning. I stayed because someone had to bring home their names. Tears streamed down faces across the courtroom. The judge lowered his head, shame washing over him. All these years, he whispered, I called you a coward. Elias smiled faintly, tired, forgiving. No, you called a ghost a coward. And I let you. Because ghosts don't need justice. The living do. The room was silent except for a few stifled sobs. Elias gently pushed the dog tags toward the judge. These belong with you now. A hand shaking, the judge lifted his brother's tag. The metal was cold, heavy with decades of grief. I'm sorry, the judge whispered. I know, Elias said. I was angry too. For a long time. But your brother. He wasn't calling for revenge that night. The judge looked up, eyes red. What was he calling for? Where Elias closed his eyes, remembering the last moments on that ridge. The smoke, the flames, the shouts, the silence. He asked me to tell you something, Elias said. Everyone leaned forward. He said, tell him I didn't run. The judge broke. He covered his face as tears fell openly in front of everyone. Something no one had ever seen him do in his entire career. Elias placed a gentle hand over the judge's. And neither did I. For the first time, the courtroom wasn't divided into accusers and accused. It was a room full of people who finally understood a sacrifice hidden for half a century. The judge lifted his head slowly. Mr. Granger, this court owes you more than an apology. It owes you honor. Elias smiled softly, almost weakly. I didn't come for honor, he said. I came to finish a promise. As the courtroom rose to their feet in silent respect, Elias quietly gathered his coat, his cane, and the memories he had carried alone for far too long. And as he walked out of the courtroom, head high, back straighter than when he entered, even the judge stood and saluted him. A final salute for the man the world once called a coward, but who, in truth, had carried the weight of 7 men across a lifetime of silence.